This process of learning about and understanding the self, understanding myself, has proven to be a roller coaster ride of an experience. At times, there have been moments of great difficulty to open up about the difficult pieces of my past. At other times, I have experienced pride and moments of profound awe by the stories of the people before me. And still other times, I am left speechless and perplexed by the historical, cultural, and biological forces interwoven together to create the person standing before you today. Though challenging this process may be, I know it is critically important in order to move forward and restore hope for the future, our own future, and the futures of the many lives we will influence as educational leaders. We must share our stories and be willing to have our beliefs and ideas challenged by what others think. We must examine our own narratives and give up our certainties and be willing to be disturbed. The beauty of a story and all the parts that embody it can transform the world if we are willing to listen and reflect. As I travel down my historical timeline to my maternal side, I reflect on the indelible prints my grandparents have left in all areas of my life. My grandmother, fresh-faced and innocent at 17 here, probably had no idea of the future that was ahead for her. She recalled with pride stories of raising 8 children and being the head of a household when her husband was away for uncertain stretches of time. At times she wondered if her children would go hungry. Grandma also feared for the safety of her sons, out earning money for the family while the American bombs loomed overhead. With the increasing political situation of the Vietnam War playing out in their own backyard, my grandparents made what they called the sensible decision to leave everything they knew behind, their home, their culture, family, and friends, to head for, ironically, America. With their entire life savings stitched into the fabric of their coats, my grandparents and all 8 of their children became official refugees and boarded the rickety wooden boats that would ultimately lead them to America. I believe this collectivist mindset of family and togetherness became what shielded them from the uncertainty, terror, and fear of what lay ahead on their journey. Although my mother and aunts and uncles recalled being taunted with racial slurs and harassed throughout these first years, they recalled it with humor and astonishment at how they simply did what they had to do to survive. Perhaps decades of time have dulled the recollections of fear and doubt, but I know that it takes a pillar of strength and conviction to do what my grandparents did. They also relied on the strength of their family structure and the support they gave to one another to navigate Houston, Texas, a very conservative town in the late 70s and early 80s, to rebuild their lives with positivity and hope. 10 adults crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment. I can't begin to imagine. The advantages I have today as a first-generation American would undoubtedly be impossible without their sacrifices, resilience, grit, and courage. During this same period, my father, a tough, independent, and stubborn man, decided to leave his Taiwanese homeland with a single suitcase and head to America. As I reflect on his stories of being on his own, picking up odd jobs, meeting other Asians along the way, I can't help but think of the individualistic mentality he carried proudly as he forged ahead. Dad taught himself how to speak English, watching soap operas and fearlessly striking up conversations with people in restaurants and shops. The fearlessness and courage my father possessed led him to hop onto a bus and leave Washington, D.C., where he wandered and explored, to finally land in Texas. Here he met my mother, where they fell in love and eventually got married the following year. How did my father's hugely individualistic value system forge itself so seamlessly with my mother's collectivist one? As I look back on our wild and traveling childhood, picking up from one Texas city to land in another, being yet another only Asian kid, along with my younger sister, in largely all Caucasian middle-class conservative schools, I knew my parents were searching to put down roots and find a place we could belong and call home. Love and commitment to her family are what kept my mother going and kept us going, my sister and me, through these adventures in our childhood. I reflect back on these specific moments in time, and I have learned that I possess in this unique set of values and character traits, and I search out in individuals who also embody these core set of beliefs. At 18 years old, I was ready to pack up my things and head to college in California. Growing up in an Asian household, but embracing and living in our American culture and value system was difficult during my adolescence. With the thought of California and college so far away from my conservative parents and value system, I was giddy and excited for what lay ahead for my future. This move to California did not happen. During that summer of my 18th year, my father collapsed during an early morning walk in our neighborhood. The doctor gravely gave him his cancer diagnosis and informed the two of us he had 3 months to live. I made the decision at that point to postpone college and my life in California to stay at home and take care of my father. As I drove him to the countless radiation and chemotherapy sessions, it gave us the opportunity to do something Asians rarely do: talk and share feelings. We allowed ourselves to open up and be vulnerable in a way that I knew would be impossible without the certainty of his departure looming in the distance. 3 months later, my father passed away, but he gave me the greatest gift I could have ever imagined. He allowed me to spread my wings. He told me he was proud of me, and he knew that whatever path I chose, he knew I would be okay. When I told him about my dreams of being a teacher, he gave me his blessing. That was the spark I needed to light the fire within. After his death, I enrolled at the University of Texas in the College of Education and knew I had found my calling. Even though the college was a short drive away from my childhood, it was a newfound world of diversity, creativity, and the amazing exchange of ideas. After college, I started my wild and whirlwind teaching career in many diverse school settings. Each teaching experience I've gone through has had its own share of challenges and triumphs, tears and joy, but through it all, I'm committed to my students. For without that commitment, my students might never reciprocate. My teaching philosophy is simple. It is of knowing and understanding where my students come from, sharing their hopes and fears so that I can help them become the individuals they were meant to be. Developing meaningful relationships with families and the communities my students live in help me know them better in the classroom. My focus is on educating the whole child, and school is a place where learning is valued, kindness and respect are formed, and students truly collaborate to learn and grow from one another in a welcome community. I'm conscious that the current population of students I teach come from high SES backgrounds, and they come in with a certain set of privilege and value system. As their teacher, I've challenged each student to be an activist for equality and kindness. I remind them that their words and actions have power to either hurt or heal. Although many of these students come from families of privilege, my role is to cultivate empathy, kindness, and strong character in them. If students grow up with knowledge but without strong social-emotional skills and a strong moral compass, I believe that I have failed in my role as an educator. As proud as I am of the many students' lives I've been able to reach, I know there is still much work to be done in my own professional growth as an education leader. One way I am consciously working on improving is by challenging my own, many times hidden, personal bias of people and environment, and teaching my students, their families, and my colleagues to do the same. Today, I live my professional and personal life with one foot steeped in my Asian genes and upbringing, while the other foot is steeped in the American ways of thinking and acting. When I walk, it is on these two different paths forged side by side that influence everything I do. To live my truth, I forge both these cultures together. I think about the sacrifices that those before me have made in order for me to be where I am today. I hope that each generation of our family can use this understanding to grow stronger and more resilient. My ways of thinking, views on life, and values are all a result of the people and profound events that have shaped who I am today, and it has created my enduring self. On my pathway as an educational leader, I remind myself of the servant leadership philosophy of caring for the needs of others. I truly believe that the growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership, and that is what I will keep working to accomplish.